All right, Nick, let's talk about the Nebraska Cornhusker. Big month for recruiting in general. June is a month that a lot of stuff usually happens this time of year, but there is no team that was more effective in the month of June than the Nebraska Cornhuskers. There's a lot of great data we have to break down today and kind of how that correlates, how they did it, and what exactly they did do during the month of June. I think you're going to want to see this if you love or are interested in Nebraska. We're going to break all that down here in just a minute. But first, I'm Andrew. That's Nick. And this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, big month for Nebraska in the recruiting world. They did a lot of great stuff this month. And let's remind everyone just the last thing they were able to do, how they capped off the month. The last day of the month actually got posted on the 1st, but everyone, this guy was predicted to get signed with Nebraska like about 2 weeks ago. So this is just the culmination of the work they put in the month of June. We got our post from over on X at Hayes Fawcett, great reporter, great guy as far as all of your recruiting news. And it says breaking class of 2026 wide receiver Larry Miles has committed to Nebraska. He tells me for at Rivals. This is the 6 foot, 177-pound wide receiver from Winter Garden, Florida. That's important here. Chose the Cornhuskers over Miami, Louisville, and Pitt. So I really think this was a great addition. I think it's a great player. It kind of capped off a really special month for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And you might ask, let's talk in 2026 class right now. How special could it have been? Let's take a look at our first chart here, just outlining where this 2026 class came from as far as month to month, how many players were added to this class. We see September 2024 all the way back to last season. That's actually when Dylan Raiola's brother committed to the team. One player in September of 2024. October of 2024, this is when they were able to add another player to the team. May 2025, one more player added. So at this point, there are 3 players in this Nebraska class. We jump to June. 9 more players get added in the month of June for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So that is correct. This class went from 3 to 12, jumped up there really, really quickly. And I think that is a big part of what is going on in Nebraska. This team is moving in a great direction in the recruiting department. And let's bring up a graph talking about just exactly that, what they're doing in the recruiting game, how they're moving, and what direction this Nebraska team is going in for the 2026 class. So have our chart here. The blue bar part of the chart is a very key metric here. I brought it up earlier talking about a guy from Winter Garden, Florida. These are the players, percentage of the players that they were able to bring in from SEC territories. I think that's very key here because we look at the orange line graph, and this shows the recruiting ranking for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We see in 2024 here, great class for Nebraska. I think the recruiting ranking was very well in the high 20s. I think it was about 22. And we look here about 38% for Nebraska Cornhuskers, actually 37.9% for the Cornhuskers of that class was based out of the SEC. In 25, we see 46.1% of that class was based out of the SEC. And we see their grade is about the same, right around there. Good 20 overall recruiting class for Nebraska, doing good things there. Then we look pre-June for 2026. Yes, only 3 players in that class, but nonetheless, about 33% of that class was out of the SEC. We look at their ranking, not very good. It was in the 80s. They were very, very low as far as their recruiting rank before the month of June. We see just 1 month what this class could do. It goes from being in the low 30s up to 58.3% of this class being from SEC territory, jumping all the way from being the 84th best class in all of recruiting up into the mid 50s. This team is doing really, really good. Actually, I used all of my rankings were from 24/7 Sports. I like that. I like their rankings, but some websites even had Nebraska up into the 40s. So that's a massive, massive jump, a jump of almost 30 to 40 ranks in just 1 month. And we're going to see it continue rising. I think they have not stopped. This is the start of something special for Nebraska. And I think all of it has to do with their recruiting strategy. We're seeing more and more players Nebraska has targeted from SEC territories. I think it's a really good sign showing this team is focusing on, hey, we need to compete with these SEC teams. We're in the Big Ten now. That's a really great territory. We've seen lots of other teams target the SEC areas and win. It is very open right now. There's not, 100% clear team that is dominating. It's easy to slip in there, get guys. Nebraska is doing it, and 58% of their players in this 2026 recruiting class so far from the SEC territories. I think that's really great news for Nebraska. We've seen a huge jump in the recruiting ranking because of it, and I think we're going to see them go even higher in the next few months as this recruiting class keeps getting bigger, and I assume they're going to keep targeting those SEC territories as well. Curious what your thoughts are on all this, Nick. But before we get to you, Cornhusker fans, in the comment section below, we're talking recruits, talking SEC, we're talking, other schools maybe. We're talking SEC territories. What is your favorite school in the SEC potentially that you like the most? It's an interesting question. We're talking, areas around the country. Nebraska, great school. I think everybody loves them, but sometimes people love to go watch the SEC as well. Is there a team that you just like to watch in the SEC? Let us know in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on everything going on with Nebraska's recruiting here lately?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that there's a direct, in your graph highlighted perfectly, by the way. There's a direct correlation to how good your class is, which basically is a representation of how talented you are as a football program and how well you do in SEC country. And I know a lot of people get tired of hearing about SEC bias. Media loves the SEC, ESPN loves the SEC. I get it, 100% fair. But what also is 100% fair is that is where the best football players are. That's just the truth. I'm not making that up. And look, there's a lot of great football players in the Midwest, undeniably so. California's got some great ones, of course, Michigan area, Pennsylvania, DC, Jersey. They've got some spots as well that has a lot of good high school football talent. But the reality is, if you want to win and win championships, the data supports this. We've seen this ourselves looking in the mirror, looking at college football over the past 25 years. We can all be honest with each other here. If you win the Southeastern Conference in terms of recruiting, win the Southeast, you will win national titles, right? Clemson won the what we call the Smoky Mountain Corridor, what we call the western half of the south of the Carolinas, North Georgia, Eastern Tennessee. They won national titles. Makes sense. Florida State won a national title with Jameis Winston. They were winning the Southeast, right? Obviously Alabama, obviously Georgia, right? The easiest path, it's not I shouldn't say the easiest, the simplest path to win the national championship is to win recruiting battles in the southeastern portion of the United States. Now, it's not easy, of course. You got a lot of people vying for talent. That's why, in my mind, this move by Matt Rule and this move by Nebraska and the successful execution of it is a sign of programmatic health. This is a program that honestly believes, based on their strategy, and they're executing like they are, like they could contend for a playoff berth. Because you don't go into the heart of SEC country where you're battling Georgia, Alabama, Miami, LSU, Florida State, Clemson, whoever it may be, right? South Carolina, Tennessee, right? Throw every name in the hat that you want. You don't go in there and win quality recruits unless you're actually able to back up what you're selling, right? That's just the reality. You can't go if you're Nebraska and Matt Rule. He's a great recruiter, undeniably so. But you can't go into Florida and say, hey, man, I know Miami's all on you. I know Florida State and Florida, those are great programs. And, Florida's got a great, they're trending in the right direction. Miami almost made it to the playoff. But, you want to come to Nebraska because, we really feel like we're close. And I guarantee you a lot of kids, they'd be like, I don't believe you, right? The only way you're able to get that done and go in there and execute is if you're actually able to get these kids to believe in you. And you only do that backed up based on what people are seeing with their own eyes and seeing on the official visits and hearing, talking to other kids at camps and things like that. That's what's so important here, guys. And that's what a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of these recruits, especially in the social media age, they talk to each other. They communicate. They see each other at camps. They do social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the kids are on these days. They communicate outside of just what coaches are selling. The days of a coach going into a kid's house, with his parents and saying, hey, listen, you want to come to Nebraska and maybe win. I guarantee you those days in terms of doing that successfully aren't there anymore, right? That old school recruiting, it's basically gone. The way you win now is if you get buy-in and prove it, right? You have these high school kids, these recruits, these young freshmen and sophomores that come in and they visit the school and they attend the school and they see the momentum, they see the energy, they feel it, and then that spreads through social media, it spreads through their networks, and it gets to kids like we've seen with this latest recruit, with the other recruits down in the SEC country, right? This is a dynamic and an indication of health, of energy and buzz and everything you want to see in a program, right? It's not just like people lose sight of this. And look, Matt Rule's a good salesman, and people say, oh, it's just Matt Rule doing a good job. It's a good sales job. Folks, there's no reason whatsoever. I don't care how good of a salesman you are. Matt Rule's probably one of the best in the country. You don't go to a kid in Florida and say, hey, man, look, Miami, they just had the number one overall pick, and they almost made the playoffs, and Florida's looking really good. And of course, Alabama's going to go back to the playoff. And of course, Georgia's going to win a national title. But, heck, why don't you come to Nebraska? We had a winning season last year. It's not going to work. The only way that works is if you've developed a network of people who believe, who have seen there and been to what you're doing on campus, whether it's freshmen, whether it's coaches, whether it's other younger guys, whether it's transfers, what you've done with other commits in terms of reaching out through networks and social media. That's the only way you're able to get this done. And that's exactly what Nebraska has done here. And don't discount that, folks. It all begins with energy and momentum that you build in-house. You cannot go deep into SEC country if you're outside of the SEC and win recruits unless you have your house in order and you're a healthy program trending in the right direction. You cannot do it. You will lose every single time it happens, all of the time. This is a sign that Nebraska is trending in a good direction, and it's a sign that they're trending there now, right? Obviously, we're talking about future classes, and this is great for that, bringing in quality players. But you don't win these kids now unless you have guys that are already on campus today spreading the gospel of Matt Rule, saying, listen, energy is a buzzing. We've got a lot of momentum. We're a lot better than people think we are. This is one of those clear indicators, right? It's a leading indicator of success when you have guys that should not commit to Nebraska. This kid should have committed to Miami or wherever, right, in the Southeast. Should not have committed to Nebraska. But he commits. Why? Because he feels the energy and momentum from other sources around him. Not just from Matt Rule, not just from Matt Rule's coaching staff, but from other players, recruits, other guys in the network. And when you have that energy and momentum, people in the media, fans are usually a little late to feel it, right? But the undercurrent that you're seeing right now with Nebraska is a clear sign. There's a lot of momentum, a lot of talent, a lot of buzz. Can they execute this upcoming fall? That is the big question mark. It has to be a big year for Nebraska. Undeniably so. They have to get it done between the lines. But I think right now, what we're seeing is the clearest evidence yet that this Nebraska program is the strongest it's been in probably 2 decades. Great job, Matt Rule. But really, this is a bigger sign of just a strong, healthy program trending in the right direction.
Yeah, Nick, and I think you make some great points there. And I think the easiest way to look is you just look at the best teams in the country as far as recruiting go, and just see where they get their players are. Like, it's plain and simple. Nebraska is on the right track. They're really, you see the jump in what they were able to do in their recruiting grades are already in just 1 month. When we look at some of the other best teams in the country. Let's look at some 2025 classes. Georgia, boom, 20 guys out of the state of Georgia in that class. Easy, simple, done. They really dominate the SEC. They dominate their home territory. Boom, easy. Texas, what do they have? 15 guys out of the state of Texas. Even go look, the next guys out of Texas in that class: Georgia, Florida, Alabama. So, okay, that 99% of that class all from the SEC. That's a team does really well, looks really good. Let's look at Oregon. Oregon, obviously, as far west as you could possibly even go. They're as far away from the SEC as you could be. Obviously, they got a majority of their class from the state of California. They got 5 guys out of the state of California. But we look at the next 3 biggest schools there: 3 guys out of the state of Texas, 2 guys out of the state of Florida, 2 guys out of the state of Alabama. What do they know? They got to dominate SEC. Yes, they're so far away. They do have to dominate California as well because it's right there. It's easy for them. But they hit the SEC hard every single year. I think my favorite one to look at is the Alabama Crimson Tide. And we can look 2025, what they were able to do. This is a team that headlined this class with 7 guys out of the state of California. I don't think that was the right direction they need to go in, and I don't think they did either, because you look at what they were able to do in 2026. Now we see 4 guys out of Alabama, 4 guys out of the state of Georgia, 2 guys out of Florida. Already this class, 1 guy out of the state of Tennessee. This class dominated again by SEC talent. They tried it. They went to another part of the country, said, hey, what do we think about dipping our fingertips into the well over on the West Coast? Don't like it. Let's go back. Let's start dominating SEC again. So I think that's the key here. Nebraska, really great job so far. It's like you said, getting that net, getting these guys from these other areas of the country to come to your team, and just people who should not be there starting to commit to Nebraska. I think that's the key. This team is moving in the right directions. Like you said, this is a really strong Nebraska squad right now. We're seeing a lot of momentum. And I think we're going to see, if the trend continues, as SEC players continue committing to Nebraska, we're going to see that recruiting score go up. This time next year, we're going to be talking about one of the top. I guarantee you they break that 20 line. We're going to be in the teens, in the tens potentially, as far as where this team is going to be. Really great recruiting program for Nebraska, and it all starts with them trying to come in and dominate the SEC.